Hong Kong just prevented an anti-China operative from a CIA-linked operation from entering the city. But the mainstream media is pretending she was no more than an innocent grandmother visiting her grandchild. The way the story's been twisted is actually pretty funny. MP refused entry to Hong Kong on visit to see newborn grandson, says the UK Sunday Times in a report today. Oh, remember when that was a good newspaper? She's quoted as saying, "I want to see my grandson. I want to cuddle him." But she was told to go home. Oh no. She added, "I didn't cry, but I was very close to tears." Then UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy, friend of Netanyahu, put in his 2 pence. Unjustified restrictions on freedom of movement can only serve to further undermine Hong Kong's international reputation. Yes, working hard to spoil Hong Kong. In other words, this is a standard attempt by Western journalists to feed this fake anti-Hong Kong narrative by hiding the real story, which I am going to tell you. Now, the real story starts many years ago. After being repeatedly caught doing illegal black ops, the CIA decided to spin off a portion of its overseas work under a nicer sounding name, the National Endowment for Democracy, or the NED. Now, this group continued the CIA's global specialties, political interference worldwide, and endless demonization of US rivals, especially China. The NED's first op was in China. By 2020, the US had a terrible reputation for meddling in the affairs of other countries. And people were becoming wise to what the NED was really about. So, what to do now? The US State Department decided to set up a unit that would feel non-American, but that they would finance. So US chose to start a new front organisation with their most servile supporters, the UK and Japan. It would start in the UK and then expand to draw as many European nations in as possible, and then other countries further afield too. So the NED teamed up with its frequent partner organisation, the OSF, which is a political interference body funded by a US billionaire named George Soros. In June of 2020, the two of them launched the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC. Now notice, it doesn't sound American, right? Nearly everybody I know thinks it's British. A few months later, the Americans launched a Japanese branch of IPAC. Now the face of IPAC worldwide was a British man named Luke de Pulford, who's notorious for his harshly negative opinions on the Chinese. Now, IPAC's mission was to act to cultivate negativity towards China in other countries, or to use its own statement, it was to work as an international cross-party group of legislators working towards reform on how democratic countries approach China. The trouble was that if you look closely at it, it did look like an obvious CIA anti-China operation. Fortunately for them, the Western mainstream media were very happy to write endless anti-China articles quoting IPAC without mentioning the CIA or the NED or Soros. A lot of people didn't want to be doing something that seemed to be doing the foreign policy bidding of the United States, so the way we built this thing had to feel to them that it was authentically cross-party, de Pulford told the Nikkei Weekly. Since then, IPAC has engaged in huge amounts of anti-Chinese activity. When Jimmy Lai was engaging with shockingly violent groups causing mayhem in Hong Kong, there were numerous communications with IPAC found on Jimmy Lai's phone. In court, Jimmy Lai said that de Pulford contacted him so often that he became a nuisance. Actually, the court transcripts of Jimmy Lai talking about the IPAC leader are pretty interesting. I'll share those with you another time. But IPAC's mission is to foster division and to prevent peace. I'll give you 2 examples. When French leader Emmanuel Macron said that the Chinese and the Europeans should actually work together for mutual benefit, IPAC issued a harsh statement saying, Monsieur le President, you do not speak for Europe. Now, Miss Hobhouse and her colleagues at IPAC have become the motherlode of demonization of China worldwide. They've done their job. CIA, the NED must be very happy. Miss Hobhouse obediently pushes the CIA narrative on Tibet and on Taiwan and sees the world divided into two: the glorious free world, the one currently led by Mr. Trump, and the rest of the world. That tells us a lot about her. Now, IPAC claims to just tell the truth, but does it? Well, here are some facts. You decide. Now, as most informed people know, the US is by far the biggest enemy of the general rules set by the WTO and the United Nations for keeping world peace. But the US has refused to sign or ratify at least 40 of the international treaties that keeps the world peaceful and safe for everyone. Now, in response to this, the US has ordered all units to announce that it was actually China, not the US, that was distorting the rules-based order. Now, this was so absurd that it has actually become like a joke on social media, with many people, including the present writer, going viral with attempts to report on what the rules of the rules-based order might actually say. But IPAC, no. IPAC, of course, did the bidding of its real masters in the US. It held a symposium in Tokyo to, quote, encourage a coordinated democratic response to Beijing's distortion of the international rules-based order. So, in summary, the CIA set up the NED as a front organisation, and the NED worked with Soros to set up IPAC as a front organisation to push US foreign policy on China in countries outside the US. IPAC has caused immense harm to the innocent people of Hong Kong, endlessly pushing for huge amounts of sanctions, endlessly demonising us, and also punishing our community in numerous ways, punishments we've done nothing to deserve. Those are the facts. Now you decide. Is this woman best described as a grandmother coming to visit her baby? Or is there more to the story that you're not being told? I've given you the facts. You decide. Peace.